Hey, and welcome to a new episode of the BAM Book Club. Today we're going to be going over the book of Tobit. So I'm really excited about going over this study in Tobit because it was the very first book that I ever read in the Apocrypha. It just hit me different, sort of like a Mike Tyson punch or something. I felt like I could relate to Tobit in a way, and as his son Tobias as well. So in this book, we're going to meet Tobit, obviously, because it's his book. We're also going to meet his wife and his son. We're going to meet his son's wife. And we're going to meet Raphael, the angel. Cowabunga, dude. We're also going to learn a new medical procedure. And we're going to see an unfortunate circumstance that happens to Tobit in an incident that I can only describe as crappy. So before we get into this study, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. It will let YouTube know that this study should go out to more people. Now I do need to mention, before we go any further, that I did run across 3 different versions of Tobit. Well, not so different, but there were slight variations in them. The ones that I came across were the KJV, the CEB, which is the Common English Bible, and then the Catholic Bible. The CEB and the Catholic Bible have a couple of details that aren't mentioned in the KJV. And the Catholic Bible is also in the third person, while every other version of Tobit is in first person. So these are the 3 that I've came across. I'm sure there are plenty more out there, but these are the 3 that I came across, and I will be reading from the KJV. So here we go. Let's get into it. Chapter 1 of Tobit. The book of the words of Tobit, son of Tabel, the son of Anil, the son of Adul, the son of Gebel, of the seed of Ashel, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the time of Shalmaneser, king of the Assyrians, was led captive out of Thisbe, which is at the right hand of the city, which is called properly Naphtali in Galilee above Asher. Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to explain when this takes place. So let's turn to 2 Kings. 2 Kings 17, 1 through 6. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hosea the son of Elah became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 9 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel who were before him. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against him, and Hosea became his vassal, and paid him tribute money. And the king of Assyria uncovered a conspiracy by Hosea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no tribute to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up, and bound him in prison. Now the king of Assyria went throughout all the land, and went up to Samaria, and besieged it for 3 years. In the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took Samaria, and carried Israel away to Assyria, and placed them in Halah, and by the harbor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. So this is when the Assyrians came in, and they took Israel. This is the northern kingdom. They just took them, and we're going. And never looking back. That is when Tobit is taking place after they've been taken into captivity by the Assyrians. And we see this prophecy fulfilled from Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28:36. The Lord will bring you and the king whom you set over you to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone. Let's continue in Tobit. I, Tobit, walked all the days of my life in the ways of truth and justice, and I did many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation, who came to me in Nineveh, into the land of the Assyrians. Alms deeds might sound like a really weird word, but it actually means to do an act of charity or to do good work. So like, if you were out feeding the homeless, or taking care of orphans, or taking care of widows, something like that, or tithing to a ministry. These are all alms deeds, giving of yourself to do a charity or a good work. And here it is, Tobit is saying that he's done this his entire life. He's walked in the ways of the Lord. He's walked in his commandments. He's done many alms deeds, many charitable acts to his brethren, to the other Israelites. And when I was in my own country, in the land of Israel, being but young, all the tribe of Naphtali, my father fell from the house of Jerusalem, which was chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, that all the tribes should sacrifice there, where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was consecrated and built for all ages. Because that's where the temple was supposed to be, in Jerusalem. Now all the tribes which together revolted, and the house of my father Naphtali, sacrificed unto the heifer Baal. I don't care, he's a false god, I'm not going to say his name right. But I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feasts, as it was ordained, unto all the people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruits and tenths of increase, with which was the first shorn, and them gave I at the altar to the priests, the children of Aaron. We see this instruction in Deuteronomy 12:11 through 14. Then there will be the place where the Lord your God chooses to make his name abide, which is Jerusalem. There you shall bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, the heave offerings of your hand, and all the choice offerings which you vow to the Lord. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your sons and your daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levite who is within your gates, since he has no portion nor inheritance with you. Take heed to yourself that you do not offer your burnt offerings in every place that you see, but in the place which the Lord chooses. In one of the tribes, there you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do what I have commanded you. So God has a very specific place where he wants these sacrifices to be done. And we are supposed to rejoice there and celebrate with our sons and our daughters and our male and female servants and the Levites who are there. But what we are not supposed to do is do it wherever we want to do it. We're not supposed to just sacrifice wherever. And that's what Tobit is saying, is that he went down to Jerusalem to do these sacrifices that the Lord has commanded. The first tenth part of all increase I gave to the sons of Aaron, who ministered at Jerusalem. Another tenth part I sold away and went and spent it every year at Jerusalem. We find this commandment in Numbers 18:21. Behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tithes in Israel as an inheritance in return for the work which they perform, the work of the tabernacle of meeting. So this was God's way of paying them, because they didn't receive an inheritance like all the other tribes did. They're doing God's work, so they're reaping in the benefits of the sacrifices and the tithe. That's going to them to help support their livelihood. And the third I gave unto them to whom it was meet, as Deborah my father's mother had commanded me, because I was left an orphan by my father. And his grandmother Deborah had instructed him that he needed to give a third of his tithe to someone in need. And this we find also in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 14:28 and 29. And at the end of every third year you shall bring out the tithe of your produce of that year, and store it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates, may come and eat and be satisfied, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. Let's continue. Verse 9. Furthermore, when I was come to the age of a man, I married Anna of my own kindred, and of her I begat Tobias. So he got married when he became a man, married Anna, and they had Tobias. Verse 10. And when we were carried away captives to Nineveh, all my brethren and those that were of my kindred did not eat of the bread of the Gentiles. This is prophesied in Ezekiel. Ezekiel 4:13. Then the Lord said, So shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, where I will drive them. This is also talked about in Hosea 9, verse 3. They shall not dwell in the Lord's land, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and shall eat unclean things in Assyria. So all the Israelites that were taken into Nineveh, were taken captive into Nineveh, they're now eating their captors' food, their captors' bread, basically. Verse 11, but I kept myself from eating. So Tobit's not eating this bread, much like Daniel refused to eat the king's food. Because I remembered God with all my heart, and the Most High gave me grace and favor before Shalmaneser, so that I was his purveyor. I had no idea what a purveyor was, so I had to look it up. It's a person who sells or deals in particular goods. So basically he was like Shalmaneser's salesman, tradesman, whatever. He would go into a town and he would trade or sell a particular item to somebody else that would help further the Assyrian kingdom. Verse 14, and I went into Media and left in trust with Gabel, the brother of Gabrias, at Rages, a city in Midian, 10 talents of silver. That was hard to read, so I'll try to explain it. He went to Rages, which was a city in Midian, and he left a certain man, Gabriel, 10 talents of silver. So quite a bit of money right there. Verse 15. Now when Shalmaneser was dead, Sennacherib, his son, reigned in his stead, whose estate was troubled, that I could not go into Median. So the king is dead, his son's taking over, and he's not being able to go back into Median to collect this money. Verse 16. And in the time of Shalmaneser, I gave many alms to my brethren, and gave my bread to the hungry, and my clothes to the naked, and if I saw any of my nation dead or cast about the walls of Nineveh, I buried him. There's actually a commandment for this too. We just need to stay in the Apocrypha for it. So we're going to go to 2nd Esdras. 2nd Esdras 2:23. Wheresoever thou findest the dead, take them and bury them, and I will give thee the first place in my resurrection. Bury the dead. It's the right thing to do. It's loving your neighbor. There were just dead bodies all over the walls of Nineveh, just lying there. And Tobit was going and burying them because it's the right thing to do, because he loved his neighbor as himself. And because of doing this, he will receive first placement in the resurrection. Verse 18. And if the king Sennacherib had slain any, when he was come and fled from Judea, I buried them privily, for in his wrath he killed many, but the bodies were not found when they were sought for of the king. I'm just going to put an asterisk right there, and we're going to come back to that, but I'm going to continue reading first here. Okay. Verse 19. And when one of the Ninevites went and complained of me to the king, that I buried them and hid myself, understanding that I was sought for to be put to death, I withdrew myself for fear. So this king did not like that he was going around and burying the Israelites, burying the dead, and he wanted to kill Tobit because of it. He wanted Tobit put to death because of this. I guess they were like trophies to this guy. Verse 20. Then all my goods were forcibly taken away, neither was there anything left for me, beside my wife Anna and my son Tobias. And there passed not 55 days before 2 of his sons killed him, and they fled into the mountains of Arat. And Esarhaddon his son reigned in his stead, who appointed over his father's accounts and over all his affairs Achichairus, my brother, Anel's son. Achichairus. Verse 22. And Achichairus, entreating for me, I returned to Nineveh. Now Achichairus was cupbearer and keeper of the signet and steward, and overseer of the accounts. And Sacidanas, who's naming these people? And Sarchidanas appointed him next unto him, and he was my brother's son. So Achicharas is Tobit's nephew, and he's now the third king's cupbearer and keeper of the signet ring. So he's a pretty big deal to this third king. Now I want to go back to verse 18 real quick. Verse 18, and if the king Sennacherib had slain any when he has come and fled from Judea, I buried them privily. For in his wrath he killed many, but the bodies were not found when they were sought for of the king. It says he fled from Judea. What is this talking about? That he fled from Judea? There's no other information right here. Thankfully, I came across two other translations, and I'm going to read those to you just to give you some insight into what's going on right there. This is Tobit 118 from the Common English Bible. I also buried anyone whom Sennacherib murdered after fleeing home from Judea, at the time when the King of Heaven had punished him for all his insulting actions. In his rage, Sennacherib, Mixoplex, Bizarro, I don't know, killed many Israelites. However, I would take their bodies and bury them secretly. Sennacherib looked for them, but he didn't find them. Notice that it says he was fleeing Judea because the King of Heaven was punishing him for all of his insulting actions. So let's see what the Catholic version says also. This is in Tobit 1:21 in the Catholic Bible. And then, when King, you know his name, had returned from Judea, fleeing the scourge which God had caused all around him because of his blasphemy, and being angry, he was slaughtering many of the sons of Israel. Tobit buried their bodies. So this is saying that he's fleeing Judea because of the scourge that God caused all around him because of his blasphemy. And on his way out of Judea, he's just killing people. He's getting back to Nineveh and he's killing Israelites. He's just killing them because he's so mad at what God did. But how do we verify this? I'm glad you asked. Let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings 19:35 through 37. And it came to pass on a certain night that the angel of the Lord went out and killed in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. And when people arose early in the morning, there were the corpses, all dead. So you know the name, King of Assyria departed and went away, returned home and remained at Nineveh. Now it came to pass, as he was worshipping in the temple of Nisroch, his god, that his sons, son 1 and son 2, struck him down with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Arat. Then Eshhadon, his son, reigned in his place. That's the same account that happened at the end of Tobit 18 to the end of the chapter. That's why he was fleeing. 185,000 of his people, his soldiers, were killed in one night by an angel of the Lord. That's insane. And he was mad, and he went home and he just started slashing, killing Israelites along the way, as many as he could, because he was mad at God. What a horrible man, right? So what can we take away from chapter 1? Well, what I believe we can take away is Tobit's character and his dedication to Yah. Here he is, captive in a land that's not his own, not because of anything that he did, but because of what the people around him did. They disobeyed Yah. They rebelled, but he became a victim due to the outcome of all of Israel's punishment. And even in captivity, he continued to do the right thing. He continued to walk out God's commandments, God's ways, even though it was starting to get him in trouble with the king. It put him in the king's crosshairs. But that didn't deter him. What an example. We got called out of the world, yet we still live in a land that's not our own. Not yet, anyway. And with all this wickedness and confusion that is in our society right now, when our land gets punished, and it won't be because of us. It'll be because of them, what they are doing. We see this play out in Revelation as well. You either deny Yeshua and accept the beast, or you don't eat, you don't work, and more than likely, you're gonna die. Yet we are told to endure the race. We are called to walk out our faith, to walk out His commandments, His ways, regardless of the world around us. So stay strong and encouraged as you do this. So that's the message that I have for you guys today. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or emotional outbursts, please let me know. Or if you saw something else about Tobit chapter 1 that stood out to you, I would love to hear about it. Until next time, Yah bless. Peace.